This is an instructional video about comparing rational numbers. The topic for today is comparing. This is on page 6 of our notes, and our essential question is, what form helps me compare? This is a selecting level question. So first up, why do we need to know all of this? Let's say, for example, someone ate 15% of a bar, and another person ate 1/10 of a bar. So we have candy bars, and we'll go after 2 seconds, how much have they eaten? Well, I want to know, how do these values compare? The unfortunate thing is I can't look at these numbers as they are and compare them. Just like if I could, but if I looked at like 4 and 5, I'd be able to compare those two, but I can't compare 15% and 1/10 because one's a percent and one is a fraction. So what I always want to do is we want to always convert to a common form. Typically, the most popular ones that I will see students do is either all decimals or all percents. Sometimes I see students do fractions, but most of the time I see decimals and percents. The reason why I don't see as many fractions is because it requires more work. I have to find common denominators, I have to write equivalent fractions, I have to do some multiplying. There's just extra pieces to it, but that doesn't mean it's not valid. It's just not as common as changing them all to decimals because I can use a calculator, or changing them all to percents when I can use a calculator and then I just have to move the decimal. So, we have 15% and 1/10. So the first one I'm going to show is change all to decimals. So 15%, all we need to do is divide it by 100, and that becomes 0.15. And then 1/10, what I have to do is do 1 divided by 10 in my calculator, and that's what it looks like. So I'm comparing these. Remember, these are your 3 symbols. Greater than, less than, and equal to. So I'm looking at my two numbers. I have 0.15 and 0.1. I want to be able to compare those two. So when I'm using decimals, line up decimals. 0.15, 0.1. Do you see a difference? I see 0, I see a point, I see 1, I see 5, and I see nothing. So this one's larger, so 0.15 is greater than 0.1. So there's that method. Otherwise, what I can do is I can change all to percents. Well, in this case, 15% is already a percent. 1/10, however, first I'm going to actually, well, there's a couple ways you could do this one. Now, some of you like to use equivalent fractions, and you can be like, oh, my just multiply it out of 10, and you got it. Otherwise, you can just again type in your calculator, and then what you need to do after that, multiply it by 10, so I multiply it by 100, and you get 10%. So we have 15% comparing it to 10%. Well, I can see here 15% is more than 10%. So those are the two different strategies that you can use. Some students will use fractions as well. Most won't. Most will use one of these two ways. That is all that you have to do when you are comparing numbers, is make sure that you always convert them to a common form. And I would recommend that you do all decimals or you do all percents. And there you go.